Hi everyone! Thank you so much for joining us today. Today's webinar will be about creating manga portraits and character designs in Clip Studio Paint, presented by Asia Ladowska. Before we begin the webinar, there are some housekeeping items that we'd like to go through. The webinar will be approximately 1 hour long. All attendees will be muted. Question and answer session will be during the last 15 minutes of the webinar. Attendees can ask questions in the GoToWebinar question box right away. Due to time constraints, not all questions will be answered. The webinar will be recorded. The recording will be shared on social media and will be sent via email to all registrants and attendees. Panelists are Fahim Nies, Joanna Brower, Mario Quiñones, myself, and Asia Ladowska. For those of you who are joining us for the very first time and have never heard about Clip Studio Paint is your all-in-one solution for stunning, ready-to-publish illustrations, comics, manga, and animations. Learn more at clipstudio.net/n and graphicsly.com. And with that, we'd like to pass the reins of the webinar to Asia and her presentation, Creating Manga Portraits and Character Designs in Clip Studio Paint. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for an introduction, and hello everybody. Thank you for coming to the webinar. My name is Asia Ladowska, and you can find me on various social media pages just by searching for my name. To give you a basic idea of what I do, I specialize in drawing characters and portraits, and I usually just post illustrations on social media. I not only draw digitally, I do traditional drawings with pencils, pens, Copic markers, and I do digital. I kind of force myself to do all three, so this is the way my social media is organized, so I don't neglect one and focus too much on the other. I just want to grow and get better at everything at the same time. So apart from posting on social media and practicing and getting better at drawing, I also teach on my Patreon page. So whenever I learn something or I feel I'm comfortable with, I make a voiceover tutorial about it and I share it on my Patreon page. After it's published there, it can also be found on Gumroad. So if you're interested, you can look at those. I have also published a book called Sketch with Asia, manga-inspired art and tutorials by me. So it's kind of a half-half. There's my art journey in the book, as well as some tutorials. It's about how I started, how I learned everything, some beautiful illustrations, and then some tutorials of how to make them yourself. And now I guess it's time to do some drawing. And in this lesson today, I'll be drawing a manga portrait in 5 simple steps. Yes, you're correct, there's 6 images here, but only 5 steps. I kind of thought 6 is too much to try to remember, so I shortened it to 5, and then we have step 4A and B. So this is step 4. Oh, that's the wrong color. This is step 4A, and this is step 4B. So without further ado, let's try to create something. Step 1, or first step, is making a sketch. And as you can see here, probably I made a big red cross on a basic portrait, frontally. And why? Because it's the most difficult one to do. You can really make a very tiny mistake and position eyes not on the same line, like one eye few millimeters higher than the other one, and you might not notice the mistake, but everybody else will, trust me. So it's like the most difficult one to make, and well, as you can probably tell, the most boring too. So to make a portrait like this, look interesting, you have to put much more work than if you use the pose on the right side of these examples. So if you can tell, or maybe you can, hopefully you can, like the line of eyes and shoulders is angled here. This is what's creating a little bit more of a dynamic pose, like a more interesting sketch. And this is what I'm going to try to create today. I'm a bit on a timer, because trust me, but 2 weeks ago I wasn't able to draw anything in an hour. The least that a digital illustration would take me would be 5 hours, but I've practiced a lot, and hopefully I'll be able to draw something within an hour or 40 minutes, because we don't really have full hour. So without further ado, let's start and make a sketch. I put the base here so that I don't forget which one am I gonna be drawing, and let's start the drawing. Okay, I'll start and draw a sketch. I'll do something with a few more details because it would be very difficult for me to go into the next step with just this sketch. So I'll do still something very sketchy, but with a little bit more details. To talk a little bit about the tool that I'm using, for undersketch or for sketch like this, there's not really much of a need to be picky about tools. We're just trying to sketch out the idea, do it roughly, do it quickly, and not really to waste time on trying to use a perfect tool or find a perfect tool or perfect your brush, because you of course can also edit your brushes in Clip Studio. Really fast strokes just to give me a general idea of where to position certain elements. Before drawing hair, I'll draw the rest of the head first, and that's a cool tip for you. It's good to sketch out body anatomy before hiding it under elements like clothes or hair, because sometimes you might not notice the mistakes, and but when you try to really draw body the best you can, and then add hair, then it might look much better, much more believable. Forgive me, I'm not gonna be too creative with the hairstyle and clothes that my character is gonna be wearing. I'm racing here. I'm racing here with the time, guys. So just quick few strokes here and there. I'm running out of space, so I'll also move my character a little bit higher. Maybe make it smaller. I would also say to not spend more than 5 to 10 minutes on a sketch like this. Always try to move to the next stage. Don't overspend, over-polish sketches. Sketch is a sketch. We're gonna get into some more details and, fixing everything in all later stages. But in this one, just register your idea quickly before you forget it. And after saying all that, I'm still overspending time on it. Typical, right? I noticed that the eye is a little bit too high, so I'm going to select it with the selection tool and move it a little bit lower. It's not perfect, but I'll try to do my best, making it look a little better in next stages. Maybe the head is a little too small. You know, you can always verify it when doing next step. So let's check what is the next step. Step number 2. Okay, line art. So this step is gonna take me around 10, maybe up to 15 minutes sometimes. Let's do it. I will use pencil tool for it. I kind of really like this tool because the harder I press, the thicker and the darker the line is. But if I use the pen tool, it doesn't really matter how hard I press, only the line thickness is changing, but not the darkness of the line. So I do like the organic way the pencil draws. And this is what I'm gonna use for a kind of a sketchy line art here. If I really wanted to do a perfect and polished line art, then I would probably try to use different tool. Don't limit yourself, try to find your favorite one. You can also use brushes, or you don't have to draw a line art at all if you don't want to. So I'll be kind of drawing away on this. This takes a little bit of time since I'm so undecisive with my lines. And let me try to tell you maybe some stories or something about my career. Maybe some of you can relate to how I found myself in art, and maybe they'll help you to progress further or go in my steps. So I'm not really in the industry for 20 years. I've seen some webinars on Clip Studio, and those pro artists I've been in the industry for 5 ever. They've been there 20 years and they really give good advice. So don't ignore it. But I am a little bit different. I've been drawing a little bit shorter. So I'm trying to catch up to those professionals, and it's not easy because I really don't want to wait 20 years until I'm successful and until I can make my living as an artist. So I'm trying to use as many cheat ways as possible. And so to tell you more about my story, I have been drawing manga style for around 4 years. But I haven't been a full-time artist for those 4 years. I worked in the office as a graphic designer, and I loved my job. I honestly loved it, and I learned so much in there. I am very grateful, and I have to give shout out to my friends. I learned digital programs, and I literally learned how to draw there. I was very passionate about my work, and I worked there 3.5 years. But I burnt out after around, 2 years. So I kind of struggled for the last 1.5 years. I was dying to draw. Surprisingly, I was dying to draw at work. And then at the beginning, I always tried to kind of push my drawing as a project. So anything I did, any email communication, any ad for a magazine, I'd always try to push a project that would include my illustration in it. Well, that wasn't really that much of a success because time is crucial when you work as a designer, and sometimes you just have a very short deadline for your project. And I wasn't able to do my drawings out at work. Also, it wasn't really a manga company, so they didn't appreciate this style of art. And I suddenly was very passionate about drawing in manga style. I would do sketches. I decided to go to work half an hour early, and before everybody else came, I would just sit with coffee and try to draw for half an hour. And then I had to drop it out because I had job to do. So that's how I started, and for a few weeks it was like that. Then it quickly became something more. I would draw on my way to work. So when I sat on the train, I'd also do sketches on the train. then I would skip on lunch breaks. I would go on lunch break, and instead of eating anything, I would just spend all the time drawing. And then I would also do the sketches at home after work. And then after a few months, it would just turn into me not sleeping and then going to work absolutely dead and exhausted. And, it's kind of hard to continue working like that. So I started my Instagram page around that time when I was still working in the office as a designer, when I was around finishing my university, where also manga style was really not a thing. Every time I tried to push a manga project, the teacher would say something not nice to me and would discourage me completely from it. So after having a kind of a bad day and an argument at work and probably a horrible day at the university, I started my Instagram page, and I said, I'm going to show you guys. I just want to draw manga illustrations and post them online, and this is all that I'm going to do. And I did that for around a few months again. I did that every few days. I made a sketch, and of course it did not explode straight away, but I started gaining more and more followers, and that was encouraging me to draw more. And so social media started really encouraging me to do it, because there were a few people that would always leave a comment like, "Oh, I like how you did that. Oh, so nice." And that would always encourage me to do the next sketch and post in a few days or another day. And I just as the community grew, as I got more friends online, I was more fired up to do more and post more and learn more and improve and and so on. And from that point, it took me only about 4 years to get where I'm now, which I think is really fast. And I gotta say, it was a combination of really some good luck and hard work, because I really worked my butt off, so to say. I was hardly sleeping at all. I was always trying to improve on my art and to get better. I started getting commissions, and I also was still working full time and doing university full time too, and then doing commissions and all the Instagram work, and the day just did not have enough hours. I wasn't sleeping. So having that situation and having a little bit of income on my own, I decided to take a break from work, and I asked for a leave of absence. Well, my bosses were very understanding and helpful in this situation. They let me keep my contract but take a leave of absence from work and return in 6 months, which did not happen. In 6 months, I just delivered a letter that I will not be coming back, but I really appreciate their support and the opportunity to get back to work. And I became a full-time freelance artist, which is what I do right now. I feel like I'm talking a little bit too much and not finishing the drawing fast enough, so let me just focus a little bit on it and crack on, finish this line art, or we're never gonna get to the next step. And so this is what I'm doing now. I'm a freelance artist running my Patreon page, posting tutorials there, and doing client work whenever I can squeeze it in my schedule, because it's so busy. I can't even take all the jobs that are coming my way. I'm still trying to be active on Instagram and other social media platforms, because this is it's very important to me. This is how it all started, and I really don't want to throw it all away. And I think social media are helping a lot. So growing it might be one way of becoming a freelance artist, but I would not say focus on this. This is not a good thing to focus on, because if you lose the sight of what you really want to do and you're just focused on gaining followers, I don't think you're gonna get too far. You kind of always have to have this objective of becoming better at drawing and doing art and being passionate about it, if you are. And if art is always number one, then I'm pretty sure the success is gonna follow. I believe in everybody, and after what I've been through, I think everybody can do it. Okay, I'm almost done with this line art. Few more strokes, which is very heartbreaking because doing line art is really my favorite part of any illustration, and I can spend hours on it. Usually around 2 to 3 hours is really how much I spend on the line art. I make sure I close all the lines and like that everything is perfect, that it has the weight that I'm after, and that is just, you know, satisfying to just look at the line art. And also, if you do a better line art, it's easier to use automatic tools in Clip Studio to fill them in with color. And like, I'm gonna show you an example here, because okay, after I'm finished with this line art. So one more layer, I put the brush on a little bit higher setting, larger, to draw the eyes faster. And then when I zoomed in, so guys, it's over. Once you zoom in, or once I zoom in, I can start doing the details and more details and never stop. So this is not a good thing. If you're intending to do an illustration quickly, try to not zoom in too much on it. It's just a sketch, no zooming in, no doing details, no using tiny tools like very thin pencils or G pen. Okay, so just quick. You know, not every illustration has to be perfect. Sometimes it's just a good practice to do the same illustration. I'm going to show you something later. To do the same illustration a few times, but try to do it as fast as possible, rather than spend 10 or 15 hours on one illustration. Because I feel like you could learn much more when you try to draw faster and more instead of spending all the time on one illustration. Okay, so I'm quickly just gonna fix this because I don't like the position. And zoom out to see better where I position all the elements. And now I'm gonna show you something about the clean line art. So as you can see, this line art isn't too clean, it's just very sketchy. But if I had a clean line art like this one, where I really spent a few hours on it, like all the places are closed, I closed all the elements, not perfectly, but like more or less perfectly, and choose like any random color. And the bucket tool here in Clip Studio, I can select an option refer only to editing layer or refer to other layers. So if I choose the first one, it's just gonna fill in the whole layer. But if I choose the second one, it just fills in the areas recognizing the line art. And I use this function like an addict. It's one of my favorites and so helpful with everything. Like with just a few taps of a mouse, of a cursor or pen, look, it just filled in the whole background for me within seconds. But if I do this here, it's not really gonna work that well because like there's too many breaks in the lines. So the next step, let's get back to the presentation. See what's the next step after doing our messy line art? It is flat colors. So I'll show you how to do flat colors. I did show you one method, but it's not gonna work here because I was too messy. I'm gonna create a new layer underneath the line art layer, which I'm gonna color. And I will have to paint the selection myself. So we're in the second step. Third step. And I'll have to paint the selection. For this, I'm using G pen because it's flat, just like I demonstrated to you at the beginning. I don't have to press it really hard so it's dark and closed. It just creates for me a nice selection, which with a bucket tool I'll be able to fill in very easy. As always, I'm trying to be perfect with it, but we don't have time for that. There is always either or. And today I do have to sacrifice the quality a little bit, just so I can demonstrate the whole process within an hour for you. So right now I'm not really separating hair from the t-shirt, from the character, skin, and such. I'm making a selection for everything together. Just like one selection. This whole step shouldn't take me more than, I think, 5 to 7 minutes. This was kind of fast. Okay, so now I need to refer only to editing layer, because on my layer there's only this selection, so I can fill it in with the bucket tool, and now I have my whole character selected. And this is gonna make my next step easier. Like, not really the step, it's still the same step, but now I'm gonna color the hair. And look, if I just draw on the layer and try to color her and go outside of the line, not here, but like here, so in the background, it's fine, because I can clip the layer using this tool. So like clip the layer to the layer below, which is my selection. You can also find this option when you right click, layer settings, clip to layer below. I also put it here on my quick access functions, so that, you know, I can just click here or here. And I can go outside of the border and nobody is gonna see the whole mess that I'm creating there, unless you untick the clipping layer. So it's a method to keep your selection at the, like, below this layer, the main layer, still in one color as one shape, and keep everything else separate. It is helping me a lot, because then I can easily come back to all the separate layers like skin or hair and change the colors of them or paint on them without interfering with any other object. Because if I just painted on one layer, I would still very much have to be careful if I'm not drawing over other elements, or if I'm using a soft brush that can, or airbrush that can go anywhere. I would kind of lose the, what's it called? I would not be able to control this layer and my color as quickly and as accurately as I am when I have this all separate. So next layer for the t-shirt, I clipped it too. I'll actually change the color of my main selection to something more like a skin color. Maybe kind of darkish, maybe something brighter. Okay. And now I'm gonna make a selection for the t-shirt using that other pink color. I'm not really very picky about colors here. I'm just using whatever is on my color palette, so probably something I've used before or for some other illustrations. It's just, yeah, colors, whatever. You can always, because we have everything on a separate layer, you can always come back and change it. Yeah, so now some other colors, next layer, next selection for the, I don't know what is it, flowers or petals or ribbons in her hair. So like an ornament decoration. Click. And very not accurate. Hope you don't mind. I mean, you guys know that I can do better. It's just I'm really doing like a speed run here. Racing against the time, which is merciless. And I also keep eyes on a separate layer, because I kind of want to control better how I color them later. So there's another tip for you. For the eye color, try to not use pure white. It's like a tip not only about pure white, but about pure black too. I would say avoid to use pure black and pure white in your illustrations, because you can't go any further from that. It's a dead end. So if you want to do more highlights or some darken something, you can't go any further from black color or from white color. It's a dead end. So you're kind of putting yourself in the dead end. Don't do it. Avoid those colors. And as you can see, I'm kind of using off-white color, very, very light blue grayish color here. And this way I'll be able to draw highlights on the eye. And you'll be able to tell that these are highlights, that these are not, not just white on white. Okay, again, spending way too much time on every single element. I try to keep on a separate layer also this part of the eye. Kind of helps me to control it and color it a little bit faster. But sometimes I keep the skin and eyes on the same one, which is fine. Okay, I have my selections ready. Next. These are flat colors. I also call them selections, right? Shadows and lights. And I know it might look kind of difficult here, but it's really simple. And now I'm going to show you how simple it is. So now I'm going to take advantage of having everything on a separate layer. I'll go on selecting them all. So like you can see this tiny red bar here, which tells me that these are all the layers clipped to my main selection layer. If I switch on this one, all of them are going to disappear. They're like all part of one, but separate. And I'm going to click this button, which is Lock Transparent Pixels. It will kind of keep the shape and won't let me go outside of the border. So I'll show you the difference here on the first layer. If I try to paint, it just keeps everything within the shape. If I untick this icon, it'll still go outside of the border. So it's now letting me paint within the shape. And to do some shadows, I don't need to do too many lights because all my colors are very bright. So I'm like only gonna do shadows and not really too many lights or highlights. I'm swatching the color that I want to add shadow to. I'm starting with the skin, so I'm swatching the color from the skin. To do it quickly, I just press Alt on a keyboard and tap with my pen, and it swatched the color. Now I'm just gonna drag it on the color wheel or square to something a little bit darker, and I'm gonna paint. I'm just gonna paint a little darker on the same layer. You can also use a variety of tools for that. Brushes blend really nicely. They're a bit softer than G-Pen, but I do it sometimes with G-Pen. Maybe just for the demonstration, I'll do it with a G-Pen to show you. So just blobs of color everywhere. I think it's even maybe too bright, something a little darker. Just like a kind of a general shadow. There's not really a specific light source here, but it's really good to be consistent with the light source. Like you wouldn't put shadows on both sides of the nose if you had a light source in mind, because you would know where the light is coming from. So for me, the light is coming from here, kind of, right? And let's say it's sunlight, so it's gonna be very soft, but I'll soften it all together later. First, I want to draw shadows on all the other elements. So maybe a t-shirt now. Swatching the color, dragging it to something a little darker, and then making sure I'm on the correct layer, which also sometimes happens that you're not on the right layer and you're just painting, not noticing it, and then you're like, oh shoot. So next layer, I'm going to switch it off and on to make sure which layer I'm on. Swatch the color from it and make it slightly darker, maybe even move the tone on the color wheel to make something a little bit different, like a different hue. And painting a little bit of shadow here and there. I'm not really paying too much attention. It's just to make the character look a little bit less flat. It is still 2D, right? But gives a bit more details, something nicer. So the same for the hair, maybe too dark. And now I'm gonna make a brush a bit bigger so that it's faster. If you want to ask me how I know where to put the shadows, I don't. When I draw and I see it looks good, I keep it. If it doesn't, I go back, try again, maybe overpaint everything and like see what looks good. When I'm completely lost and don't know what to do, I open either Instagram or Twitter and check how my favorite artists do it. Like, I'm looking for something specific, so I already know what to look for. I'll probably go to like one of their artworks and look where do they put shadow on the hair. And this is how I learned to define where to put those shadows. I think the hair would benefit having some highlights, so I'm gonna swatch the bright color again, move it to something brighter, and just paint a few strokes of a highlight. Really not a lot, just like a few here and there. Quickly. And now it kind of looks a little bit harsh, so I'm gonna go back to the brush tool and use one of the brushes. You can experiment or make up your own brushes, or just look at the settings of my brush. Like, I'm gonna scroll so you can see. And make the same brush if you like how my brush is working. I really like how this one works because like when I press harder, it's gonna paint with the color, but if I press lightly, it's just gonna blend my colors together. So I kind of really like this brush. Quickly, I know softening stuff can be very addictive, and I am one guilty of all that. Sometimes it's very easy to overdo it. Be careful, not too much, just like soften it here and there, but not everywhere, okay? If you watch tutorials by like artists that have these 20 years of experience and stuff, they would tell you to do it differently. They would probably tell you to observe objects, study them, make a lot of studies, and learn from nature, learn anatomy, learn what's a 3D object, and you know, all that very difficult stuff. And what am I gonna say about it? I'll say they're right. They are telling you, of course, the right thing. They're professionals. Don't ignore what they say. But if I heard that at the beginning of my art journey, that, you know, I have to study all the fundamentals, anatomy, perspective, backgrounds, how to position characters in like all the 5,000 different positions that are possible or available, I would probably quit drawing altogether. I wouldn't want to draw. That wouldn't be fun for me. It would be just a lot of hard work and stress. And don't get me wrong, getting better at art is hard work. It can get stressful. It can be overwhelming, but it doesn't have to be. It can be, you know, studying anatomy could just be your homework. And for the rest of the time, you can, you know, draw happy stuff, make some studies, copies for yourself to get better, practice more pleasant way to draw what makes you happy and not really what you don't want to draw, that you kind of have to because these professionals told you to. And yeah, you know, they're right, but don't pressure yourself with all this. Don't forget to have fun when drawing and draw what you like. So I kind of did this way, like I like drawing portraits, so I would always draw portraits, but sometimes I force myself to draw hands with the portrait even though I don't want to. And like this way I get out of the comfort zone and I get better at it. And it's still pleasant because I'm doing what I like. It's just, you know, this a little bit of discomfort, but after I get more comfortable with it, after I get better, it's not a discomfort anymore. So it's just pleasure of its own. Okay, I gotta move to the next step. We're a bit too spending too much time on this. So quickly, the very last step that I do here, I don't like how all the colors are separate from each other. So I kind of swatch the color from the face, use the airbrush tool, make it bigger, and you know, I'm on a hair layer right now. So I brush the skin color, either the brighter one or the darker one, onto the hair. And this kind of softens the hair color a little bit, because it is like making an environment. This way hair is like blending in with the face better. And I'm gonna do the same thing on a t-shirt, add some skin color to it. I'm gonna add some flower colors on the hair too, look. Just to make the flowers glow this way. I think it's such a super cool effect. I'm kind of done with doing all the soft shadows here. Okay, I forgot about the t-shirt. I'll just blend it in real quick. And let me spend those 2 to 3 minutes on the eyes. I have to, guys. Eyes is my favorite part of any drawing, and sometimes I spend like the most of time on it. So let me do it here too. Okay, it's a bad thing. I shouldn't be zooming in, but let me zoom in and just find the layer for the eyes. There you go. And, you know, paint a few brush strokes here and there. Darken it at the top. See, this is like using a soft brush, but I'm gonna use both soft and hard brush. And darken it more with the pure black, which I told you not to use, but I'm using. Okay, zoom in. I unlocked the pixels, so now I can, you know, go outside of the layer border. And I'm gonna make the brush smaller. I kind of just really want to make them softer. Smaller again, swatching colors. You know, you can always swatch the colors like environmentally and try to use them on different elements in the illustration to kind of unify everything together, make it more interesting. So I'm using the color from about here to just draw details in the eyes. And I'm gonna swatch the color from pink t-shirt now and use a brush to like drop a few, I'm using a G pen, to drop a few elements here and there to just like, you know, make the colors more together. Now I'm gonna swatch the blue color and add it here too. I like it already. I'm gonna take the darker blue and airbrush and like airbrush a stroke at the top to make this kind of a sky reflection on the eye. Such a simple element, like one brush stroke, and it's already making it look so much better. And the white, told you not to use it, but I'm doing highlights, so it's cool. Highlights. Not too many. I feel like I did already too many, but it's fine. Her eyes are just very sparkly, okay? I'm gonna add some lipstick because I did a very, very messy job here. So I'm gonna fix it. Smaller brush, maybe dense watercolor. And now a transparent one to blend it in together. Okay, now I'm liking it a little bit more. Okay, one more, just one more, okay, just one more. I shouldn't be, but I want to add blush on the cheeks. I really like adding blush. It's just like one drop of color. Ready for the next step? I hope you are, because I'm not. I'm just gonna keep adding more. Highlights, okay, highlights. Next step, I'll never get to it. We did shadows and lights A. Now it's time for lights B. It's much easier. It should take me about 3 seconds to do. So above all the clipped layers, I'm gonna make one more layer, clip it to the main one, so it's like still within the same shape. I'm gonna use a kind of grayish purple color, so I kind of pick it randomly from here, like a pinkish, purplish. I'm setting the layer to multiply, and using bucket tool, I just drop the shadow. And yeah, like, why would you do that? It doesn't look any good. If it's too dark, you can always like brighten it by lowering the opacity. If it's not dark enough, you can either change the color to darker or brighter. I'm liking it this way, so I'm keeping it this way. And now using, I'll show you what you could use this effect for. I'm not gonna do it, but let's say she's standing under the tree. And now using an eraser, you can, erase some patches here and there, and she'll look like she's standing under the tree where the light is coming through the branches. It's such a nice effect. I don't use it often enough, but it's really nice, and it just adds the depth to the illustration. So I'm gonna, do something simpler, just like in the presentation here. I'm gonna draw the simple shape of the shadow. So like, let's say there's a line in here. Okay, I need to put more density on the brush. And because, she's not flat. I mean, it is kind of 2D drawing, but I don't want to draw a straight line because that would imply that she's very flat. I'm just drawing like an arc here. So even if it's a shadow from the roof that she's standing under, or from any other element that's like straight, it's better to draw an arc instead of a straight line. And I'm just erasing where I don't want the shadow. And then like a straight line here to say that her back is still in the light, but her top of the head and like some part of the shoulder is still in the shadow. I'm gonna do the highlight here too. See, it's like doing the highlight, but I initially did a shadow, and now I'm just erasing the shadow to do the highlight, which is super cool. I really love this simple effect. So don't forget, it's just a multiply layer with like a grayish color, and whichever color you use, that would be your shadow color. So you can use blue, you can use green, you can use black. Please don't use black, but you could. And this is my shadow. Let's say this hair is going a bit forward, so it's like in front of her, and it's still catching some light. And voila! Very simple. Time for the next step, because it already took a bit too long. Finishing touches. And here I gave you can screenshot this screen or like keep coming back to it. These are just some examples of what you could do to finish an illustration, to like make it look like finished one. And I'm gonna demonstrate all of them real quick. So color the line art. I'm going back to my illustration, finding the line art, which is these two layers, and now I'm locking pixels of the first one. I said color the line art, so I need to figure out which colors to use. I want to color the line art around the skin. So I'm picking up the color from the skin, dropping it about here, so it's like darker and less saturated. And using the airbrush on a big mode, I'm just making sure it's like 100% brush density, so it's making it really colored. And I'm coloring the liner. You can tweak the colors yourself, like to whatever your preference is. You don't have to use like exactly what I'm showing you right now. You can experiment and see which colors are better. If it's better to have a darker color or a brighter one, it's really up to you. And then the next one for the hair, so I'm gonna switch this like yellow-orange color and make it darker. And now color the line art around the hair. The same for the flower, blue, darker. These are still dark colors, but it does make a difference for the illustration, trust me. The same for the t-shirt. And you see these black lines, I put them on this layer, but I should have put them on the other layer. Now I want to color them with this kind of brownish color. I shouldn't zoom in because now I'm showing you how messy my line art and everything is. Don't look. Okay, and I'm keeping eyebrows and eyes black because I want the main focus to be on them, and I really like how dark they are right now. So the next step, yeah, we colored the line art, and now copy and blur the line art and set to linear burn at 20% opacity. Okay, so I'm gonna group these two layers, like I selected them, and I pressed Ctrl G on my computer, which made them into a group. I can also color the group, and then duplicate layer, which copies my whole group, so both layers. Now I have them double. You can see how it like darkened the sketch. The line art. And now I'm gonna merge selected layers. So now it's a one layer. Filter, blur, Gaussian blur. And now I'm trying to look for, I don't know, something that I like. Okay, I don't mind the 25% or 22%. That's good for this illustration. And now I'm gonna change it to linear burn. It looks kind of harsh right now, but if I lower the opacity, it just seamlessly makes the line art a little bit softer and darker. Like, because the line art is kind of messy here, you can't tell it that much. But with different line arts, different thicknesses of it, you're gonna see the difference much more. It's just a cool effect to make line art a little less harsh, so softer. Okay, add glow dodge or color dodge. If you don't know much of these effects, you are missing out. This is what's gonna make the illustration pop, literally. I'm gonna glow dodge, but because, color dodge is exclusive for Ross. Ross draws and he's color dodge time. I'm not gonna use it. It's his effect. So I wanna add this effect to the line of the shadow. So like not the whole illustration, but can you see how the need something darker? How the line of the shadow here glows? Like there are these. It makes the shadow stand out and hide. So it's a very nice effect, which if you observe in nature, this is something that is happening. So I'm gonna swatch the color again from the hair, brighter or darker, doesn't matter which color, but you do have to lower it. So like on the wheel, you must choose something closer to black rather than to the yellow. I'll show you why. Because if you choose something closer to white, this is gonna burn your illustration. This is a very, very strong effect. So we want to use a darker color. And look, darker color is just making this effect so soft, but so amazing. It pops. So I really love this effect. It's one of the statements and finishing touches for most of my illustrations. But don't overdo it. As with everything, you can overdo it. So if I go over the whole shadow, the shadow is no longer a shadow. It's just too bright, too shiny. So I keep the shadow dark as it is and just do it on the edge. Stronger or less strong, it depends on you, how much you want to put in there. Just, tastefully. I'm gonna do the same for the t-shirt. Like not too bright color or it's gonna be too strong. So on the edge mainly, and for the skin, I try not to use the hair color on the skin. I try to use the reddish hue, like kind of a red color. Not too much, you can always overdo it, so be careful. I'm just literally very softly touching up on the illustration. I'm not doing it too much, I'm not doing it too hard, so very gently. Have the feeling for it. I want to add some to the eyes, so I'm just gonna pick a random red or pinkish red color and make it glow a little bit. Did I add it for the flowers yet? Maybe not, so let's add it for the flowers. Just carefully, not too much. We don't want everything to shine and sparkle. Okay. So this is the glow dodge. Color dodge will have a very similar effect, just it's a little bit softer, so it won't have that much of an impact. Next idea, paint single hair strands. Oh, okay. So for that, we can't stay within the shape anymore. So I'm creating a layer, but not clipping it to the layer below. And using probably the same as for line art, I'm going to swatch the colors from the places that I'm going to draw around and just add like a few naughty hair strands. Some brighter ones and some darker ones. Here and there. It's just, you know, it's just an idea. And just like with everything, you can make it or break it. If you put too many, she's just gonna be so hairy and so messy. You don't want to do that. Don't overdo it. Sometimes really, one is making the illustration finished, and two is destroying it. So careful with that. Paint some highlights. We already did it, so there's no need for that unless you really want to add more. Then you can add some more highlights. I already did the ones in the eyes and on the lips, so I can skip it. Add soft white light around the character. Because my character is not on any colored background, it's on white, I want her to softly blend into that white background, and this is why I said white color. If it's a different color, then you'd use probably a different color. So using 100% white as my background is, on a layer above all other layers, I'm softly brushing with the airbrush. Not everywhere, but you know, on some parts of the character, just to make her softly blend into the background, as if there was some sort of light coming from behind her, and making it hard for us to look straight at her because she's kind of blending into the background. And this is like a finishing statement for the illustration. It makes it look so much finished, even though it's just a sketch, and it still could benefit from much more polishing and adding details. But like this also makes a statement, just like the glow dodge. And add a shadow. I'm not really gonna add a shadow because I already added the white to soften the character from the background. But if you decided to add a shadow, you can always pick this grayish color on multiply and like create a shadow behind the character, which will make her look like, you know, it's she's casting the shadow on a wall, let's say. So like she's creating a shadow, right? But we don't want to do that today. We're just sticking with the white glow. I guess that's over, yeah. Success, guys. So I have a few principles that I wrote so that you don't forget. It's another one you can take a screenshot of and put on your wallpaper so that you never forget to. And this is to have fun when drawing. First and foremost, don't forget we're doing it to be happy. We're doing it for fun. Getting better is fun, but don't stress over it. So make sure you're having fun and you can move mountains. Second one, don't forget to not give up. There are worse days, there are better days. Sometimes it's harder, sometimes life gets in the way, sometimes we doubt our skill and illustration, but don't ever give up. I'm sure you can achieve a lot. Start small, one step at a time. So, you see, I'm a portrait artist. I'm not ashamed that I can't draw everything. But eventually, in those 20 years of my art career, hopefully I'll be able to draw backgrounds, animals, so many more elements. I can't draw everything yet, but I'm getting there. I'm just adding one step at a time. I'm adding a little bit more to my illustrations. So after learning how to draw faces, I added the rest of the head. I added hands, shoulders, they have body, and I'm just moving one small step at a time. Draw what makes you happy. And you know, you might have art teachers if you're studying art that tell you to draw something else that you don't really want to do. And they might be right. Maybe they want a good thing for you, but don't forget to draw what makes you happy. It's much easier to learn. It's much easier to progress, to stick to drawing, to make it your habit, and to draw every day if you draw what makes you happy. And I really like drawing characters. Sometimes and I'm referring to the next point, I do get out of the comfort zone and I add background to the characters. But I always try to add the character because I really love drawing them and this is what makes me happy. So I'm joining those two to get out of the comfort zone sometimes and learn something new, but also draw what I really like and what makes me happy. A good habit to have is to draw every day if possible. And we might have a lot of excuses, but even 1 or 10 minutes a day is going to add up over a week and is going to eventually add up over a year to your experience. It really helps. And guys, 2 weeks ago, I was not able to draw anything under 5 hours, but today I drew under an hour. And I'm extremely happy and proud of myself. I studied a lot, I practiced every day, little by little, and I got better. And this is what can happen to you. So draw every day if possible. And I'm sorry to say the next one, but study fundamentals. Yes, these professional artists are right about this. Don't stress yourself over it. Don't forget about all the points above. But do sometimes pay attention to fundamentals like perspective, anatomy, gestures, and color theory. These are all good things that exist. These are all things that help you with art. They're not there to make you depressed or anything. They're there to help you. But, don't stress about it too much. It's still studying, it's hard work, and it's not always pleasant. But it could be. Don't pressure yourself. It's not a race. I was racing today, but, it's not a race. Nobody puts a time on how fast you have to be, on how fast you have to learn, on how fast you have to progress and get into the career. Some people take the whole lifetime or just always keep art as their, side thing, as their hobby. That's fine. It's not a race. Don't pressure yourself. Celebrate small achievements. And just like me, I learned something over the last 2 weeks, and I have to say I'm happy and I'm proud of myself. I want to show you how many times I have practiced in the past 2 weeks. And it's insane. When I look at it, it's just so much art. And I always try to go under an hour. So first illustrations were taking much more than an hour, but eventually I got there. I practiced a lot. And I'm really proud of myself. I'm happy. And, I'm fired up to go further because I've learned something. I know I'm capable, and it's a success for me. And another important one, be nice and helpful to others. Some people online give critique or help you, give comments, tell you what you did wrong. Maybe you're like that too, giving critique to others, but there aren't always nice and not nice ways to do it. So please try to be nice to others, be helpful. You don't know what the other person is, like what situation are they in. Maybe they're going through some hardships in life. So don't forget to be nice and helpful to others. Try to encourage, try to be nice and friendly to everybody. Just don't be to somebody what you wouldn't want them to be to you. You wouldn't want a person on the street to come up to you and be rude. So don't be like that neither. Just be nice and helpful. And now take breaks. Okay, water break. Take breaks, stretch, and drink water. And I'm putting it here just literally for myself because sometimes I stay up all night drawing or sit 12 hours in one position and I forget to eat, forget to drink, forget to go to the bathroom or just move and stretch, and then I get up and my legs are hurting or my back is hurting. So over time, over the years of drawing, it can be really problematic and lead to some health problems. So take breaks, stretch, and drink water. And don't forget to remember all the above points, screenshot them, always have them at hand, and just remember. Well, I hope you enjoyed the demonstration. That's all I have prepared for today. One last thing maybe I could show you is like one of the illustrations that I spent, the 5 hours on. So this is an example. It's much more polished. It's the same 5 steps because I was trying to follow these 5 steps. But it's just, I spend much more time doing the line art, much more time blending everything together and picking up colors. And you can also push your illustrations to next level. You don't have to spend an hour. You could spend 5 hours. But for a better practice, just try to be faster. The other example is like this one. I also spent around 4 to 5 hours on it. Same 5 steps again. So, you can always push your art to the next level just using those 5 steps. But it's not said that you have to use them. It's just an idea. If you ever get stuck when drawing, this is supposed to help you. It's like you can check these 5 points if you've done them all, or maybe you think you could benefit of adding one to your illustration. So feel free to do it. You can mix them. Sometimes I do line art at the end of my illustration, so it's not like you have to do all these steps and follow them, but it's just an idea to help you if you ever get stuck. So happy drawing, guys. And let's get to the questions.
Yes, thank you so much, Asia. That was really interesting and great. And there were so many things. Unfortunately, I had a bit of problem with lag because there were just so many people watching at the same time. So, but the explanations were great. Now that you're on the slide with on the screen with your steps, could you just scroll up very slowly and just go, like, show them one by one again?
Okay, sure.
That people can look at them again.
So this is
yeah.
Okay. You can tell me when you can see the slide. I'm showing the slide of 6 sketches right now.
Okay. Yeah.
I wonder how big the lag was.
Yeah. So I see the drawing manga portraits in 5 simple steps now.
Okay. So this is like all steps in one illustration. I put all steps together. And now to go slowly through all of them. The first one is a sketch. The second one is a line art. The third one is making selections of flat colors. And the fourth and fifth one are basically shading, adding shadows. So the fourth one is adding colorful shadows, while the fifth one is adding just one flat layer of shadow. And the sixth one, which is step number 5, is finishing touches. And then I'll just scroll through slowly the presentation and we can go with questions now, I think.
Okay. What canvas size do you usually use?
Because I'm so pixel perfect and I really want for the future to have like print ready artworks, I usually use very big canvas size. So between 5 to 6,000 pixels, 4 to 600 dpi. I just always like, I'm not sure if I'm going to finish the drawing or if I'm going to polish it, how many hours I'm going to spend on it. I never know. From one simple sketch, it can always turn out to, an amazing piece and amazing artwork. So I always try to keep the canvas size so it's print ready. I never work on small canvas, but because of some program limitations, I tried, like for today, I knew if I put too many files that are too big, I'm probably gonna crash at some point. I used canvas of 2,000 pixels, but by 3,000 pixels and 300 dpi. So I could technically still print the image and it would look good. But it's because of the trauma. I used to work on small canvas sizes, and then like people started asking to buy prints, and I couldn't print them. I just had to overpaint everything from the beginning. It would print pixelated. So I learned my lesson.
Yeah. Oh God, where did the question go? You talked about that you really like line art, which is something a lot of people have problems with or that they dread. Do you have any tips for that?
Yes, be patient. As I said, line art is my favorite step, but it's like it's a test of patience because sometimes it takes really 5 hours or 6 hours, and then my hand hurts. I feel so down because like after I put colors, I still don't know if it's gonna look good or if I made some proportion mistakes or something. So I guess that the tip is to be patient. But maybe not at the beginning. At the beginning, I would try to do the sketchy line art like I demonstrated today, to just try to get the hand into the move. Don't make small lines, make rather long lines, and then like erase if the line is too long. you want to draw fast. You want to have some dynamics in the line art. So these are my tips. And I guess you can also draw without a line art. It's not like you always have to put line art in a drawing, or it has to be always perfect, polished, and closed. It's just it is really satisfying for me to do it and to see the results. So this is maybe why I spend so much time on it.
Yeah. What usually inspires you to start a portrait or your art in general?
To be honest, I am always inspired and I'm always dying to draw. So when I open the canvas, it's just I start sketching, and from warming up, so like doing some swirls and doodles, it just goes from there. I always try to draw different expressions and then practice on what I find hard to draw. And to be honest, I am always inspired. It's not really like that. It's not really like that in life, where you have so many jobs to do, so many so much stuff to prepare, and like take care of your time, organize your day, eat something, plan or travel. So I am always inspired to draw, but I can't always do it. I can't do it every day. I actually can't spend the time I wish on the drawing. So whenever I sit in front of the canvas, I'm gone for 12 hours. And this is why I put the point of taking breaks, because I forget about it myself. Like to drink water, to take breaks when drawing. And uh, if you draw what you really love to draw or like to draw, I think you'll always be inspired. If you love portraits, then you'll notice there's so many positions you could draw one portrait in, so many different colors, so many lights. There's so much emotion that can go just into portrait, that in my 700 posts on Instagram, these are just portraits and they're all different. And I think this is amazing. Like, it's a never ending subject.
Yeah. Yeah. So you do you ever have like an illustration where you're like, I really don't want to finish this, or you really procrastinate with doing something in particular?
Yeah, hundreds of them. I probably just I have so many files started and never finished. But it's also amazing to have this like backlog of started images.
Hmm.
Some when I don't know, I'm lacking inspiration, or I'm not sure what to draw, I just scroll through all the started drawings and I can pick it up wherever I left it. And I'm laughing that sometimes one illustration takes 2 years to draw is because I probably sketched it 2 years ago and I just came back to it today. Maybe it was too difficult for me, or like I didn't know some anatomy parts that I know today. And it's just, I come back to it. I always sketch if I have an idea. So for those days when I don't have ideas, I'll just use the sketches from the backlog.
Yeah. How did you find your own style? Like yours is very recognizable. How did you get there? What was your start on that one?
This actually is like the most difficult question that anybody can ask me, because I can't see my style. I
Hmm.
was looking for any style. I just want to draw. I just want to get better at drawing. And I actually heard one of my favorite artists said that art style is just the same mistakes repeated over and over again. So if I pink and blue color, I'll definitely abuse it. So my art is probably recognizable by the colors that I use. It's probably recognizable by the type of line art that I do, because I always do it the same or sort of a similar way. I use like I just go the safe way and draw how I know, not experimenting too much. So if I do an experimental piece, I put a whole background in there and I dish the line art completely. Nobody's gonna recognize it, and I don't know what the style is right now. So how would you able to tell the style by this other illustration? So it's very difficult for me to tell how I found my style, because I
Yeah.
don't think I have found my style. I'm still searching for it. Maybe not even searching. I'm just experimenting with my art and trying to get better at anatomy, better at gestures, at dynamics. So I'm not looking for the style. I'm looking to get better at drawing.
Yeah. Yeah, very good, very good. I think a lot of artists struggle with finding the style or being very focused on finding it. So it's good that you can say that you're just doing what you like.
You know, if some people are really curious and if they Google my art from 2012 or 2010 or 11, I did hyper realistic drawings. And then if you compare them to what I do today, would you say that I did these? That's completely different style, but it's not the point. The point is experimenting, finding what you really like doing, getting in the zone, making thousands of illustrations, and then you can look at them and everybody has their own style. But you can't tell it by just 2 illustrations. You can tell it by hundreds.
So you had a basic, going back to the technical questions a little bit, you had the basic order of layers with the base layer and the clipping mask and then the lock transparency. Is this your general style, or is this especially for portraits? Do you have a strict rule that you follow apart from these 5 steps?
So the 5 steps, as I said, this is like a cheat list for people that are kind of starting out, that tend to get stuck with drawing. I don't stick to those 5 steps. When I paint, I'm trying to be free. I work on like different steps. So sometimes I do line art at the very end of the drawing. I don't want to do it at the beginning. I want to make sure I'm spot on with colors, and then I'm going to put line art at the very end. Sometimes I'm just going to work with one layer of flat shadow and not do the colorful shadows. So this is like a checklist for people that are not sure where to go with the illustrations. It's like a very simplified guide. So if you don't know where to go, if you have empty canvas and you're not sure, if you follow these 5 steps, you'll definitely have a finished illustration at the end. But if you want to experiment more, then you're free to like juggle with the steps. Either do different order of them or not do them at all, or figure out your own. You're free to paint on one layer, and I know many people that do, and they're amazing at it. Or like traditional art, you just have one layer, one layer of paper. So this isn't really like, well, you have to follow the 5 steps. I always follow the 5 steps, and like I have a finished amazing drawing. I sometimes spend like 10 or 15 hours on it, or 50 minutes. It's just to help people to push through the drawing process. If they get stuck, it's like I thought of it for 2 weeks that I was practicing all the illustrations that I did. It was just I want to help you. I want to try not to like to help them have some effects when drawing, because I know how depressing it could be when you keep drawing and you just can't get there, can't have a finished illustration. I've been there. I quit many times. So I figured out this is like a 5-step cheat list for artists.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's all the time we have for questions right now. Thank you so much for the time you spent on this. I think this is the most preparation we've ever had, and it was really great listening to you and very encouraging.
Oh, thank you so much. I hope that the delay isn't getting too much in the way.
Yeah, we'll see about that, and
yeah, we'll see.
then,
Guys, if you like need me to re-record it now that I have done 50 examples, it won't cost me too much to do one more and record it for an hour. So I'll be fine to do one more demonstration without the delay. But
yeah, we'll see.
that's
We'll see, and then put it on the respective YouTube channels,
okay.
depending on how that goes. Okay.
Thank you so much for having me. It was so much fun. And
thank you so much, Asia. Thank you so much, Joanna. A lot of people are sharing their stories on social media, and they are really happy to have you here. We know we have a little delay at the beginning, but let's see if the recording goes well. We hope. But before we go, I would like to share some last slide with you. Let me just change my screen. Yep. So for more information, learn more about Clip Studio Paint, please visit clipstudio.net/n and graphically.com. As we mentioned at the beginning, the webinar is being recorded and will be shared on our YouTube channel, Graphicsly and Salsit Web. And lastly, For more information about Asia, her projects, her books, just follow her on her social media: Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. Thank you so much, Asia. We have learned a lot. Everybody's really happy. They adore you. So we hope to have
Thank
you
you.
sometime next in the future. Thank you, Joanna, so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you too.
And for all the attendees who are still here, thank you for attending. And we hope to see you again on our future webinars. And remember to follow and stay tuned in our social media. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.